Joining us now, it is David Locke, the play-by-play voice of the Utah Jazz. David, how are you?
I am awesome. It's gorgeous out. Blue sky, totally beautiful. I am not joining you from the van today. I've let you down, Hans. I'm super sorry. I will get back into my regular routine, and there will be plenty of interviews from the van this year. I promise.
I have a little doubt that we will have plenty of van visits before it's all said and done. So is it? I don't know. It's kind of. I mean, you spent a lot of time with Quin Snyder. You got to be close with him on the road. A lot of pregame interviews, a lot of postgame conversations, a lot of plane trips. Is it still weird to see him on that other sideline?
No, it's wonderful to have him in town and get to spend some time with him. So I think that's at this point. I think there's you can. I think I would just say it's wonderful to have him in town and get to spend some time with him and see him and check base and kind of reunite. And just, he's wildly important in my life as a friend and who gave me, a great deal of confidence and belief in myself to accomplish a lot of things while we were really close friends. So I'm always very thankful for that relationship.
How is his time there? I know Trae Young is day to day and he's doing his thing, but how is his time at Atlanta? Is he liking the area? Is he struggling a little bit? I know he's a 500 team or so. Just curious, kind of how he feels about Atlanta.
I mean, I think he's just doing what that team. I think Vegas odds for Atlanta was 34 wins this year. So he's got them up percolating above 500, right at 500. That's kind of what he does, right? He takes your team, makes it, in retrospect, I think, sometimes I would be on the side. He got criticized sometimes for how we played in the playoffs. I would say that the playoffs were representative of how far he had pushed the group and coached the group on a day-to-day basis to maybe – I think coaching sometimes has less to happen in the playoffs than does in the regular season. Like in regular seasons, in the playoffs, sometimes it just gets as simple as my guys against your guys, and what do you got? We can all figure out each other's game plan, so we're going to take you out of your stuff. Now what do you got? And I think he's doing the same thing here. He's done some really creative things. They're really fast. I think they were on the second shortest possessions of any team in the NBA, which is unusual when you have a very, high pick and roll heavy guard like Trae Young. And so maybe I think he's found a way to maximize Trae Young and the other guys on the team at the same time, which was a problem before he got there. Unfortunately, they made the DeJounte Murray trade in reaction to a bad playoff series. And that was obviously a really big mistake. And, that's the problem you run into in these circumstances is if you make a bad deal like they did, giving up first-round draft picks for a player who didn't fit at all, you end up really setting yourself back. And now they're really hamstrung by that because they don't have their own picks. San Antonio has them, a bunch of them, and yet they also don't have a roster that's about to compete for a championship. So, usually when you give up those kind of picks, you have a roster that's going to compete for a championship. They didn't get that.
What's the early thought on next year's NBA draft?
I mean, it's supposed to be great, right?
Yeah, that's the thing.
The next
No. I'm sorry,
2025,
and I guess 2026 too.
No, I mean, both 25 and 26 are supposed to be great. I mean, this is, I'm very reluctant. I haven't watched these players. I'm pretty reluctant to play this game where you anoint. Like last time we did this was the Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker. Wasn't that the right?
Yeah.
Joel Embiid, Dante Exum, Aaron Gordon, Marcus Smart, Nick Stauskas draft. Woo! I'm glad we all tanked for that one. So I just think you can be, obviously Victor, we saw coming, and he's actually crazily enough exceeding probably what any of us think he could have done. By the way, I looked up today. He's shooting 40% on threes from 30 feet now.
Ooh.
Oh, jeez.
Ooh. That's 7'6"? What is he?
You can't put him from that.
Jeez.
I had a good dinner with a really smart, bright basketball person last night, and one of our conversations was, what is the maximum amount of shots an NBA player could take in a game?
Without him,
losing.
Not enough.
Right. Well, I mean, okay, so you get 80, we can start doing the math. You get 85 shots a game. You're on the floor for 75% of the time. So we take that down. 75% of 86 is somewhere in the range of, 63 possessions you're on the floor. How many of those 63 possessions is one guy allowed to use?
Well, if your name's Victor, I'd say 63.
I mean, because he could really shoot 40 times a night if he wants to, and average 55, 60 points a game.
Yeah.
He's averaging 20 from the field and 10 from 3 right now.
Yeah, I mean, he could take 30. It would not be hard for him to take 30 shots in a game at all, and would be probably a good thing for the Spurs. Now, who wants to play with him? I don't know what happens. There's a certain point where, you do need teammates, and there's a certain amount of fast breaks, and there's a certain amount of other things that happen. You really can't deny his shooting window at any point in time.
What's San Antonio kind of in a almost exact similar situation as Atlanta right now, just kind of waving around 500. At what point do they turn with Victor and really start making an impact?
When they trade for De'Aaron Fox in the next 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah, trade deadline's going to be interesting, isn't it?
I mean, that'll be the start of it, if that's the guy they think is the answer. But they have pieces to that puzzle, and they've got to figure out what they want around what they want. I mean, is De'Aaron Fox actually good enough? Is that the right answer? They're going to have to figure that out.
David Locke joining us. Speaking of trade deadline, how good would Jimmy Butler look in a Jazz uniform?
He wouldn't. So
lay it out.
Right.
I want to know it because I think you and I are on the same page here.
So I think Miami should trade Jimmy Butler to the Jazz.
Yep.
I don't know if the Jazz should trade for Jimmy Butler. So you can just do the math. What's Jimmy Butler make? Like $39 million?
Yeah.
So the deal has to be like a John Collins, Colin Sexton combo. It just has to be. There's no other deal. Miami will not get two players as good as John Collins and Colin Sexton for Jimmy Butler. I promise you that. Miami will not get better than that. And I don't think they're getting a bunch of picks for him either at 35 years old. So then
Jimmy Butler, $48 million.
48.
Yep.
So we'd actually have to do some things to get to 48 because John's 27 and Colin's 18. No, that comes up. All right, that comes close. They'll get it done.
Yeah.
So then the question is, well, I think there's a bunch of questions of those are also your two best energy guys inside the locker room and around your team. And they're both incredibly good players that are also very high energy, positive juice guys and with great intentions. So you'd have to the Jazz have to make a million decisions here that I'm not in a position to make, but let's just work down the process. If you were trying to if you were analyzing whether the Jazz should actually do something like this. So the next question would be if you want to trade either of those players, okay, move to the right, have your decision-making tree. If no, then conversation ends. If yes, then what do you think the market would yield for those players? And I don't think the market's going to give the Jazz more than maybe a late first or some seconds. So if that's the truth and you decision-making tree said yes to all these things, you actually could trade, in theory, Colin Sexton and John Collins for Jimmy Butler, have Miami send you picks, which is probably not what they intend to do, and then you hold Jimmy Butler. He doesn't probably play for the rest of the year, and then you have his rights to sign and trade him in the offseason as a really interesting asset, with the worst-case scenario probably ending up with a trade exception.
Yep. That was kind of my thought. And if you're really about those assets, then I think there certainly could be some opportunities there.
Yeah, the one problem in this scenario is that Jimmy Butler has a player option next year, and when he exercises it, it really screws up your plans.
52.5.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden you have Jimmy Butler on your roster.
Okay, so when you were breaking this down, I'm like, is he thinking about building it around Jimmy? Because Jimmy's at 36 years old and
I think
rebuild
Jimmy
process.
Butler and Russell Westbrook go in the banners and the Delta Center for the same careers.
Okay.
Right next to Derrick Rose. Yep.
Right. Yeah, right. We have 3 Hall of Famers that have played with us recently.
Well,
I don't think this is.
No, I don't
think
either.
you have to get super creative and try to think these things through in a different manner.
But then Miami also has to be super creative on how they put something together for him, which could involve, multiple teams. And if you're the Jazz, that might be something that you're able to get involved in.
Can I back up on the Miami thing here for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a general rule that generally works most times in life and generally works in the NBA. And the rule is that when you decide that somebody is an idiot, they're probably not. Okay, because most people in high-powered positions are probably not foolish or simple-minded or ill-thought, right?
We've met a couple, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, there are people that work their way up for various nepotism reasons, but so not that we were thinking about the same person. Just kidding. So the thought here is right now Pat Riley looks like an idiot. Well, I'm going to go on a limb that Pat Riley is a Hall of Fame GM, and either there's a scenario they bought his own myth, but he's probably not an idiot. So when Jimmy Butler came for an extension, and Pat Riley said no, and then Pat Riley said, you need to shut your mouth in a public press conference. If he didn't think he was about to have a problem with Jimmy Butler in the next season, he really has kind of lost it. Well, I don't think Pat Riley's lost it. That's my point. Like, if that's your default to why everything's happened is, well, Pat Riley's an idiot, that sentence doesn't make a lot of sense. So my guess is that Jimmy Butler comes to an extension. Pat Riley tells Jimmy Butler to shut his mouth in a public press conference. You're done. You run the league to see what you can get. They couldn't get anything. There's no way he did those two things and didn't run around the league and try to go get something for him. Because you can't do that. And so I think they've already run around the league and they didn't get anything for him.
That makes sense.
And so I think they're going to have a hard time moving him and getting something for him. I don't think they're getting like a lot of value for him.
David, transitioning into this just Jazz team, what is the bulk of the turnover situation issues with the Utah Jazz?
They just allow turnover. Sorry, I thought you said transition. I was going to transition, not turnover. The bulk of it is probably just making decisions a second later than you need to because you're inexperienced, I would say, is the bulk of it. I think there's some that are literally that you're outmanned for every minute you're on the floor because the guy who's guarding you or playing against you is better and you just wear down and then make a mistake. And then I think there's been some that are actually like with the best of intent. There have been a lot of turnovers where the guys kind of know how they're supposed to execute the offense. Like, oh, John Collins has got a small in the post, and so I'm supposed to throw, take advantage of the switch to John Collins. That's what we did in shoot-around today. And the passing lane's not really there, and John Collins is really not that open, but they throw it anyway because they think they're supposed to do the right thing, and then they turn it over. And that's just that they don't have enough experience to say, yeah, you know what, he's not open there. If I change the angle, maybe I can get it to him. Or if I swing it to the wing and then he reposts, we can change the angle on a triangle and suddenly get it to him. Those would be the three. That would be the bulk of turnovers. I do think you have to understand, like, Hans, you get this better than anyone else. Like, why'd you get 2 holding penalties? Because the guy going up against you is better than you.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a pretty specific example, David, because, yes, I would get a couple here and there. Because exactly that. You're just going against a guy that forces you to hold. Right.
So, like, most nights our players are being guarded by someone who's better than them right now at their career. It doesn't mean that our guys won't be there at one point in time, but the majority of our guys are in their third or career year or less, which means the guy guarding them is probably better than they are, or at least more experienced or physically stronger. And so they're out. Like, LeBron has never had a moment of his career where somebody's been physically better than him. Think about that. Might be why he's playing in his 28th year at 73 years old and still dropping 30 points a game.
Yeah. Yeah, I had flashbacks there of high school football, and the coach had yelled at me. He's like, Gerard, you got to be faster there. I'm like, I would love to be faster. I would love nothing more than to be faster, but it ain't happening. I'm sorry.
Like, hey, could you grow 3 inches and get that jump off for us?
Yeah, like, sure, coach, I'm on it. I will do everything I can to run faster.
Let's just talk about Walker for a second. And congratulations to his for winning Miss America.
Cool.
Super cool. And that really could not be a more wholesome video than Walker and Will watching Abby win. And tip of the hat to Will Hardy for going with Walker Kessler to that after the game. But tells you a lot. But let's go to Walker for a second. Leads the league in offensive rebounds. Okay. Could have he done this in either of the last 2 years? No chance. No chance. His frame is so much stronger. His trunk is so much bigger that he is able to set his feet on the ground, hold ground, get hit, still hold it, and tap the ball around and keep the ball. He didn't ever used to tap rebounds. Well, why? Because he wasn't on balance well enough to put both hands in the air and hold ground and be able to tap the ball.
Yeah.
Well, so now he can do it. It's not like he didn't want to do this beforehand. He just physically couldn't. He wasn't at that stage. He's 22 years old. He's just gotten big enough to do it. And big enough and strong enough, and he worked his ass off in the off season, and now he's leads the NBA in offensive rebounding, and he's a force, and he's changing games, and our really bad transition defense is suddenly way better when it takes 3 guys to get a rebound away from Walker every single play. It's really important stuff. It's large reason why we're playing so much better. And so when we start thinking about why are we turning it over? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Yeah, because you aren't ready for you're not ready for that. And you know what's going to happen? Walker turns it over still where he brings the ball through traffic and gets it hit. Okay, well, guess what? In 2 years, his hands are going to be stronger. His arms are going to be stronger. He's going to get hit. He's going to get fouled instead. This is how it works.
The great David Locke right here on 97.5, the KSL
really
Sports
large
Zone.
Overstatement.
No, not at all. David, always a pleasure, my friend. Sorry I missed you last week. Holidays treat you well?
He's the best. So, yeah, it was fine. I actually forgot you were gone. Just kidding. All right.
I take back.
What do you think the chances were that somebody was listening to this segment?
Oh, very high.
Okay, just wondering.
I know my mom is, so.
Okay.
You mean that might be a little grumpy about what was said?
I don't know. No, they're probably not able to hear this unless they're streaming.
No, they never. Yeah.
They're busy on their own show.
What were you going to say, Scotty?
Nothing.
I'm usually the one who missteps with one too many words. You went to the edge and pulled back, my friend.
Yeah, probably not enough though. But anyway,
all right.
Life is better. Let's just say that. Appreciate it. Thanks, David.
See you. Bye.
David Locke right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.